Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today on a Tuesday with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
It is going well. Thank you very much.
Originally we were going to be on here and talking about electric boats with somebody. I rescheduled him for Friday of next week. I couldn't quite get everything synced up.
Right.
Did you tell me you were going to be gone on a Friday?
Yeah, on Friday, I'm going to be helping out at a beekeepers conference.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I got to remember to talk to Bobby then.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Give me a second. Got to make a little note or I'll forget.
Make a note for yourself. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So today, the really big first story is Tesla is the big winner as Canada is opening the door to Chinese-made EVs.
Yeah.
Now, while Tesla is a U.S. car manufacturer, they make most of their EVs in China. It's just that the ones for the U.S. market are all made here.
Right.
Or almost all, although we do use some Chinese batteries in some of them. But for the most part, they make the ones that are sold in the U.S. here in the U.S., but the bulk of their production is actually done in China because they have that one factory that rolls out like 1 million cars a year, right?
Yeah. Shanghai.
It's massive, that gigafactory. But Canada has removed their 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs. They'll allow 49,000 units. They're capping the number of units that can come in from China annually, 49,000 annually at a 6.1% tariff rate. Now, I was expecting it to be like BYD and some of this. They expect Tesla and Volvo to be the early beneficiaries of the China-Canada deal. And
it's kind of surprising me too, given the pricing and the plethora of brands. Yeah.
That's a funny comment, Owen. It's possible. I mean, it's certainly slightly better, pricing. I don't know why it might not have some better tech. You just never know.
I was listening to I know it was the China show, the two guys from China show, and they were talking about where he was touring a Chinese e-bike factory. Mm-hmm. And he said there were 2 stacks of batteries. There was a stack for the domestic market, and there was the stack for the export market. And the export market were the stricter built, higher standard batteries. The ones for the internal market in China were the lesser quality batteries that they were.
That's selling. Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising. They don't care. They don't want the bad publicity in the other countries, apparently.
Well, they can control the publicity inside
China.
Country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's just kind of wild. I had some discussions this morning about, getting people to vet scientists and investors in a certain business with the State Department to make sure they don't have ties to the CCP.
Yes, exactly. And there's a lot, apparently.
Yeah, and it's a tough deal in the energy space. The one industry that is kind of non-Chinese is the oil and gas industry. So, that's why a lot of people kind of criticize green as being, just not good for America. And it's because, we look at the stuff with the solar panels and with the electrical inverters and stuff like that, having secret Chinese communication parts in them. It just, some of that just gets a little weird,
Well, they are trying to catch up and pass the rest of the world, and they're going to do that by hook or by crook,
Yeah, so. And then we saw the stuff about the buses in Scandinavia, where there was thoughts on that. Are we worried about the winter storm? No.
Yeah. No. It's going to be 32 here and like 40 something tomorrow. Next week,
No. Thursday, it's supposed to be -4 here.
Yeah.
Okay, it's supposed to, and the high temperature is supposed to be like 4.
Yeah, but I'm talking about today and tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Crazy. It's just been a roller coaster, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. Weather's always changing. All right. Tesla is delaying Canadian Model Y performance deliveries by several months as it adjusts to the new tariff structure. I don't know. I can't imagine the Model Y performance is that high of a selling vehicle. Oh, Texas could get 3 inches of ice. Oh, that could be catastrophic again. They're better positioned.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this a lot. Texas has really been a leader in battery storage. And so it's going to be a lot harder for them to have the problems that they had 3 or 4 years ago. But it's still, Texas is different. Their whole grid is
Epcot or something like that. What is it? ERCOT?
ERCOT. Yeah. ERCOT. But their grid is fractionalized because there's all these, they have free trading. You got like 100 electric companies there. And there's a lot of just different challenges with having their fractionalized system. But one thing that's different in Texas, they use electric heat. So they're dependent on electricity for the heating, whereas we use natural gas here in Nebraska. And so we're not dependent on electricity going out. If electricity goes out, we still have heat. Although our thermostat can shut down. I mean, there's still problems that can happen even with the heat.
Right.
But for the most part, we still have access to heat and hot water, even if that goes out. But still, you just never know what's going to go on with that.
Back about EVs and not about we're becoming the weather channel, it seems.
I know. Anyways, all right. Next topic. Let's talk about Ford and BYD.
Yeah.
So Ford is in talks with Build Your Dreams, BYD, to supply batteries for hybrid vehicles.
And other companies, they stress.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say who, but other companies.
It would give Ford access to cheaper, more advanced battery technology. A Trump advisor warns that Tesla will be a footnote if this partnership goes through, raising concerns about Chinese competition. Well, the truth is, Tesla is still the second largest EV maker worldwide. Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting.
The advisor. If he's advising the guy in the White House, I don't know.
The problem you get in the EV space with anybody that's out of the oil and gas space trying to give advice on EVs, they're always just nuts because they're always looking at it just from a U.S. perspective.
Yep.
And they don't realize how much of the world has already made the transition.
Where we're at 25% in Europe, 55-60% in China, 90 plus nearly 100% in Norway. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's really I don't know. Some of these comments are just a little ludicrous.
Fact, there's a headline, a story about how the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, are hedging their bet and going more and more electric. And of course, we know that not only does Lucid build their electric car in Saudi Arabia has a second EV brand, and a local indigenous brand called Sear. So you tell me, these guys are the guys that made their fortunes on oil and gas, and they're looking seriously at getting into EVs. What does that tell you?
Well, one of the problems is, as we've looked at battery swapping and other technologies in China, they're looking at reducing their annual dependency. Already they've dropped their oil usage by like a couple million barrels a year, but they're on track to reduce it, even more. Yeah, I wonder how many electric EVs there are in Greenland. I've really been wondering about this whole infatuation with Greenland. I mean, I get some of the arguments and stuff, but totally, we already
baseless.
We already defend the place now.
Yeah,
so I don't know what really changes.
if you want to mine there, you can mine there. If you want to put bases to, if you wanted to put a missile system there for the Golden Dome, interesting, it's called the Golden Dome. If you want to put, that there, I'm sure you can reach some kind of an agreement with the Danish government and the people of Greenland. I mean, we already, this is apparently was supposed to be secret, but people have revealed that we already have or have had nuclear weapons stored there. So come on, we really, it's about legacy, to be honest. Okay, come on, it's about legacy. This guy is so insecure that I've got to have a legacy. So he puts his damn name on every building he can possibly find, puts his name on the national, or puts his face on the national park, entry card. Come on, this guy's got a real serious ego problem.
Maybe we can rename Greenland more appropriately to Trumpland.
Yeah, Trumpland. Yeah. God, no, I'm not. I'm not going to use that. In my book, it's he who shall not be named.
Yeah. Eric the Red did a really good job of naming it Greenland to not give people the wrong
impression. It was marketing.
Yeah, I think he did a great job.
It was a marketing ploy.
Yeah, Goldland. Yeah. Yeah, because people didn't really like the idea of a place called Iceland.
No, that was, let's make it Greenland and entice them, further out across the course. That led to them then exploring further and establishing even temporary settlements in North America. I saw something that they have found remains of Viking settlements in Minnesota.
That's been talked about for a long time.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's ever really been proven.
Or not? Yeah,
yeah. There's been artifacts that didn't make sense.
Yeah, a stone apparently they found under an uprooted tree that has ancient runes on it or something like that.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
If you ever watch the TV series Vikings, they actually have some of the people end up in North America. And
I haven't watched it.
It's kind of funny. No, it's in the last seasons, but it starts getting a little, a little far out
Stone. There. Thank you, Owen.
Yeah. All right, but anyways, let's see, where do we want to move to next? All right.
Well, what's happened? So the deal with Ford and BYD is these are batteries that they're going to source for their Ford hybrid vehicles, and apparently, as we've talked about in the past, that they're already building a extended range EV out of the Bronco in China, that's sold in China, and apparently they're going to begin exporting that. Although Jim Farley says they aren't sure whether they're going to bring that particular vehicle to North America. Although who knows, it could end up coming through Canada. So.
It's funny. Mary Barra talks about the fact that she doesn't like the idea of going back to plug-in hybrids simply because it doesn't make sense.
No, and those are engineers talking to her. That's a conversation that's been going around within the engineering community for decades now.
Yeah, that it doesn't really, from a manufacturing or actual customer success with the vehicle aspect, the plug-in hybrid doesn't really make sense.
Well, here's what they found out. This was reported last week, is that when you buy a plug-in hybrid, virtually none of those owners ever plug it in. So it totally nullifies the reason why you would want that vehicle. The whole point of that vehicle is you're going to drive 30, 40 miles a day, do it in electric mode, right? And only save the gasoline engine for long trips to go see grandma or go to the football game out of state or whatever. But nobody does that. Nobody plugs in those hybrids.
Well, I don't know.
They're finding.
At my gym, there's a lot of plug-in hybrids. I hear them tootling around in the parking lot. You hear the electric whir. And
well, those are the exception then that are doing it.
They all plug in because they're operating on electric mode. They're not
Good
driving
for
around in
them.
gas mode.
That's
Yeah,
what you're supposed to do. Thank you, people.
yeah, but yeah, that's the citizens of Ralston.
This
You know,
is kind this is kind of like also the flex fuel vehicles that was touted a decade or two ago.
those were dumb.
Flex fuel. Nobody ever burned ethanol in them. They all
For good reason. It was too
well, yeah,
expensive. You
I
got
can
less
tell you that from
horsepower.
experience.
Yeah, it was an economic disaster. Yeah, the flex fuel vehicles were an economic disaster because the fuel wasn't that much cheaper. And I mean, it was like 10% cheaper, but got a third less horsepower.
But got a third less horsepower. Yeah, it cost. You had to fill up more frequently.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
Yep.
All right. So some analysts are suggesting Tesla may have hit peak sales amid declining brand reputation. I don't know. It really depends more. There's such a big market still for people to adopt EVs, and Tesla's still the leader in the space. It's just a matter of people, kind of coming back around to it. But on the flip side, like we were talking last week, what is it? We got 30 new EV models hitting in North America or the United States.
Yeah, it's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, 30 new models for 26. But Tesla still leads competitors in momentum and quality scores, according to Benzinga. Tension between Elon Musk's political involvement and Tesla's market performance is cited as an issue. Well, at some point, that's going to be, maybe that will or will not be an issue. You could get more horsepower on E85. You need to tune on motors like Ford 5.0. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, but still, then you would have had the same effect by burning regular fuel, wouldn't you? I would imagine.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's just an interesting argument that Tesla could be at the peak of its EV sales. The problem is, at the same time as that, people are betting on Tesla now in the robotics and AI and other things.
In fact, Musk
Full
is saying
self-driving.
that's where their real economic future is with the robots, the automation.
I just can't imagine somebody racing with E85. It's just, it's usually the other way around. They're going from regular fuel to avgas, trying to crank out a few extra horsepower.
I think some of the like the Indy 500 and NASCAR, some of those guys were doing that as part of an effort to quote go green, and so their engines were tuned to run on ethanol fuel.
But wouldn't that slow the car down if it wasn't getting as much
energy
density?
Apparently, as Owen points out, and I'm not an expert in this area, but obviously, but yeah, I suppose that you can tune the engine to such a degree and probably add superchargers, whatever you need to do to crank the horsepower up. Mm-hmm. It's it's if all the cars are running on the same fuel, nobody has an extra advantage.
Yeah, no, I get that. All right, let's see. Move on. Got somebody else. Motley Fool says some of their analysts are saying that Rivian and Lucid could be heading for $0.
Nah.
Yeah, I don't agree with this. Both companies on shaky ground with high losses and relatively low sales.
They're the experts. I'm not.
But
just based on gut feeling, and now they're not.
Here's where somebody's coming in with.
Oh, we lost the audio again.
Oh, there goes Bill. So part of the issue you get is people will spout some of these things looking at just the path of the stock ticker and seeing where its peaks and valleys are. And what happens is, in these particular cases, Lucid's protected by the Saudi royal family. The Saudis could easily just take Lucid private, okay? They're already having Lucid manufacture in Saudi Arabia. So it wouldn't make sense for them not to keep it going. So Lucid's not going to go to zero. Your worst case is the Saudis take it private and you get a premium on your stock ownership, which means you're turning a profit. And Rivian is up 31% in the past 3 months, but facing slow deliveries and softer EV demand. But that EV demand will rebound within a year. We've already seen this previously with the German model. Germany dropped EV incentives a couple of years ago. So Rivian's down to $16 though. It was up to all the way up to 22 a couple of weeks ago. So it's certainly seen some dips, but that's all right. It looks like everything's a little bit down today. If we look at all the stock tickers, everything's red. We have a red day. Are you better, Bill?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay.
Suddenly there's no audio. I don't know.
Oh, AMDs are greeny. Or AI stocks, maybe they'll be green. Let's see. No, Microsoft down a little bit. So who knows? It's tough out there this week. No,
Yeah,
this is interesting.
What's happening? Bitcoin apparently supposedly crashing, and the price of gold is supposed to go through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Silver down. I have no idea. I don't own any silver.
Yeah. I don't track the precious metals much.
Yeah.
The funny thing with precious metals is they tend to be kind of like, I used to hear this analogy, like say 150 years ago, for a certain amount of gold, you could buy a men's suit or a really nice men's suit, and the same nice men's suit is about the same amount of gold today.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of an
Per ounce,
interesting.
I gather, or whatever. So
Yeah, that historically, gold and silver kind of move with inflation.
yeah.
So they're sort of inflation resistant, but you're not really growing with it. It's just it's a good inflationary hedge.
So I think what gold is last time I checked is about $4,300 an ounce now, something like that, almost 4,400.
Yeah, but they both kind of tend to track with inflation, and it from that perspective. I mean, if you simply wanted your money not to rot, like keeping your money in a savings account, you're always losing value because it doesn't keep up with inflation.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a problem, but that's one advantage to investing in gold and silver is that it's an inflation hedge more than anything. And it's also kind of nice to be holding on to in a recession too. But in a recession, it's still, it's probably not going to go up, but it's probably also not going to go down very much. All right. Let's talk about one of your articles today from EV World. Arctic surprise. EVs outperform diesel in extreme cold.
That was a surprise to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So an NREL study in Alaska showed EVs operated reliably at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit in remote Arctic communities. EVs outperformed diesel in Kotzebue, Galena, and Bethel with lower total costs. Chargers stayed functional, and fleet managers report EVs thrive in harsh conditions, which is a major myth buster. Let's see. Fleet managers don't get paid to argue on Facebook. They get paid to look at the numbers and make decisions in the best financial interests of their companies. According to the studies that follow real-world fleets, EVs don't just survive, they thrive beating out diesel on the balance sheet. Researchers from the University of Alaska collected data from drivers in the 3 towns I mentioned, and the study was called Are Electric Vehicles a Solution for Arctic Isolated Microgrid Communities? EVs delivered lower total operating costs than diesel once fuel, idling, block heaters, maintenance, and downtime were fully accounted for.
Yeah. I kind of wondered about when I looked at this. Well, the only caveat I have is that whereas once you get the diesel up and running and all that idling that they have to do, you've got that excess heat that you can use to heat the cabin. Whereas, what you've got is generally a radiant heater, unless that truck is equipped with a heat pump of some type. So that's going to obviously pull, in my car, when I turn it on, it takes about 25% of the energy in my battery to run the heater. So I tend to just run the seat warmer and that type of thing to keep that amount of energy down. But I'm guessing that probably has a factor. But other than that, the block heater to keep that engine oil warm and all that would definitely run your costs up.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I thought this was kind of fascinating. Now, they were saying, though, it significantly lowered the efficiency of the EVs, but not as much as the diesels. Yeah. But a lot of that was just the fact that they have to keep those diesels running.
Right.
Whereas the EVs, they didn't. So that was a big chunk of that research.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have to warm up? You've got a shaft, and the motor there, and maybe use the right bearings and oil. That's probably turns fairly freely, I would think. Whereas you've got a diesel engine, you got all those pistons and crankshafts and valves and everything that have to be kept relatively warm to function properly.
Yep. Back around 2010 to 2012, some of the areas in western North Dakota were really attractive to real estate investors. And it was because of the Bakken shale oil reserves that were being fracked. Okay. So fracking was driving all of this work. But one of the things with fracking, I think fracking only works when oil is over $70 a barrel or something like that.
Probably.
There's some magic number where if oil drops to like $50 a barrel, the frackers all stop.
That being said, one of the largest developers is this guy named Ham, right, up in the Bakken. And I saw a story I didn't follow up on, I just saw the headline, thought, oh, that's interesting, is that he's going to stop all of his drilling operations in North Dakota. This is the guy that's a buddy of the occupant of the White House, right? And he's, the story was that he's going to stop his drilling in North Dakota.
That's kind of interesting. I guess it's becoming economically not viable.
I don't know that. I just saw the headline. So somebody, if you want to look it up and share the story with us, just look for I forget his first name, but Ham is his last name.
Yeah, but I remember when the price of oil went down, a lot of investors were in bad shape. These are real estate investors because a lot of the stuff they were doing was short-term housing.
Yeah.
And because there was a huge need. In fact, RV parks, a lot of things like this. So a lot of your oil workers will live in RVs.
Right, temporary,
Yeah, and so it's a challenge. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is one of our topics today is why you should be skeptical about Venezuela's oil reserves.
Yes.
Yeah, and so one of the problems, Venezuela is considered to have one of the largest oil reserves in the country or in the world.
In the world, yeah. In fact, they're the largest by estimation.
They have 300 billion barrels of proven oil, more than Saudi Arabia. But the problem with that is it's a really difficult type of oil
high sulfur
to drill
content
and to process. And it lies in something called the Orinoco Oil Belt, a vast region containing extra heavy crude and bitumen-like hydrocarbons. It's unquestionably real and enormous in scale. U.S. Geological Survey estimates suggest there could be more than 1 trillion barrels of oil. Oil in place is not the same thing as that oil can be economically produced, transported, refined, and sold. It bears little resemblance to the light, free-flowing crude produced in places like Saudi Arabia or West Texas. It's far closer to Canada's oil sands. Yeah. So once again, this is probably heavily affected by where the price of oil is. If the price of oil is too low, the stuff is too expensive to refine.
Too expensive. Why do it? Yep.
Now, as EVs become more prevalent in trucking, shipping, cars, and world oil demand starts to go down. I mean, the Chinese are definitely going to drop. The Chinese are trying with EVs to become not dependent on the rest of the world for oil.
Yeah.
Okay. So while a lot of it is an effort to be cleaner and greener, a lot of it is also the realization this is a solution economically, though, for them to be independent. I think if I was the leader of any country, I would not want energy and energy dependence on any of my neighbors.
Particularly, I mean, this is a real problem that's facing them with the oil coming out of Iran,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where a significant portion of their oil is coming out of Iran, and that whole country now is a mess. They've got around the oil fields. The workers have gone on strike, and they're not pumping oil anymore. So, where are they going to get it from? Venezuela. That's ships are being taken over by the U.S. Coast Guard and the Navy. This is putting a real strain on them.
So in the early 2000s, Venezuela's proven oil reserves were far more modest by global standards. Around 2005, estimates only placed the country's reserves at 77 to 80 billion barrels, consisting primarily of conventional crude. That put them well behind Saudi Arabia. And today, that reserve would place them as 8th in the world. Okay. But under OPEC and US SEC reporting rules, a barrel of oil only qualifies as a proven reserve if it can be economically recovered at prevailing oil prices using existing technology. That's more economic than geological, and it's central to what happened next. Well, technology changed, and at the time, the price of oil was only $25 a barrel. Okay, so at those levels, the cost of extracting and upgrading far exceeded the value of the finished product. The oil was physically present, but economically stranded. Now, we compare this $25, what I was saying about fracking. Okay, because I think that, I'm not sure what that magic number is, but it's a much higher number than you suggest. And I know that when all that stuff started going on in the Bakken, I think oil was at around $100 a barrel. So
there was a period when it even went to 120 briefly at one point.
140 in 2008.
Yeah.
As oil prices rose, projects that had once been marginal suddenly appeared economic, at least on paper. Yeah. So it reclassified large portions of the Orinoco oil reserve from resources into proven reserves. So it could easily go back the other way. But what I was getting at, as EVs start becoming more prevalent, and at some point, world oil consumption will drop.
Yeah.
We just don't know when. I mean, because it's been close. You and I have talked about, there's been this massive surge in, fossil fuel cars. There's less production, and EVs have jumped in and taken a big chunk, because what was it, like 5-6 years ago was peak number of cars manufactured worldwide that were just gas engines, purely gas cars.
17, 19 million, something like that.
Yeah. And so that number is going down, and we're seeing it now start to transition even in the larger trucks. We're starting to see the beginnings. It's not, I'm sure it's not even worldwide. It's probably not even 1% yet. Okay. But it's at the beginnings, much where EVs were, say, 10 years ago, or when I say EVs, cars were 10 years ago. So likely it'll probably be 10 years before you really see it significant. But at that point, because it'll start being an oversupply of oil, you'll see the price per barrel coming down.
And
right? And it'll make a lot of this not profitable.
And see, I wonder, because then after this whole Venezuela Maduro thing, they had these oil executives come in, and the oil executives basically said, we don't really want the oil. And why? Because they probably see the handwriting on the wall. There are 2 refineries in Texas that can refine that oil, and that's it. So you got to figure out how to get it out of the ground. You got to, get it transported across the Caribbean. You got to, get it to that refinery, and they have to work on it. And it probably takes a lot of hydrogen or whatever, and sulfur cleaning to clean that oil up and put it in the pipeline, so it can run in our cars. And it's just for oil. For the oil companies, who was it? ExxonMobil said, thank you, Mr. President, but no thank you. They see that. They understand that. Just no market for it.
A company called Rystad Energy estimates Venezuela's economically recoverable oil at only being about 1/10 of the official total.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
That is a huge discrepancy, a huge discrepancy.
And there, by the way, on the web page, I said, well, where is this Orinoco Belt? If you go to this particular article, then I've got a map of showing you where the Orinoco oil belt is along the Orinoco River before it flows out into their delta to the east of Caracas.
Yeah. So in 2020, oil fell below $60 a barrel. Much of the Orinoco no longer met the economic threshold required for classification as proven reserves. So they should have been reclassified, but they were not. So that's definitely a challenge there. They really do have the oil, but it's a matter of how valuable is it really?
Yeah.
Well, and that could be the case. You know, what's also kind of interesting is when you're making asphalt roads, depending on where you're at, if you're in Florida, they actually mix most of the weight of the road is actually granite aggregate. And if you're
that's just just a glue at that point, then.
Yeah. And in Texas, it's like limestone aggregate. But in Florida, they need the granite for traction on the roads. In Texas, they don't need it quite so much. Yeah. Why I know this? I honestly, I've gotten involved. I've been on some calls about a real estate project I'm doing in Florida about whether we'd be willing to allow our railhead to be used for transporting and storing granite aggregate for road construction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I didn't really need to know this.
Well, yeah, well, granite, I assume, the sandstone is probably going to wear faster, or than would the granite. Granite, a lot harder, dense material. So maybe it lasts longer than what it would in Florida. So
yeah, for those of you who care, you notice I talk a lot about I like talking about these economic topics. On Thursday at 4:15 Central Time, I'm going to be on E360 TV on a show. I'm going to be talking as a panelist. They want me to talk specifically on the economics of green energy, but anyways, so I'll get to pontificate on there a little bit. But you guys probably already heard all of it. Anyways, so the different composite probably makes it look a little different, but it's still your regular black asphalt. It's just the granite does give it a lighter color. So, and what's interesting is, while it is the same kind of stone that goes in your countertops, it's a different quality of granite that comes from Brazil that you have in your countertops. So, there's Bobby. Bobby, I need to talk to you about working on Friday. I need a co-host.
Yes, replace me. Yeah. I'm going to be doing something else. So
yeah. Anyways, let's go back to our stories. Let's see what I want to cover. I want to cover. We got a ship story. What do we got? U.S. electric ship innovator aims for global impact. Let's see. A new business model for electric ships deploys battery swapping in smaller vessels to cut the total cost of ownership below conventional cargo ships. It's really interesting because, battery swap technology is the only thing that's really going to work in this,
for something of that scale. Yeah.
Bobby, plan on it. Plan on Friday, normal time. Let's see what we got here. We got a nice picture of it's kind of a cool name, the Pacific Jewel, but Joule.
Yeah. Now, I will say that the image that goes with the story originally, that is not the electric ship. That is a totally diesel. No, that is not the ship. I did some research. That is not it. What I did, if you look on the article on the website, is I asked AI to generate what the ship might look like. I don't think they've actually even laid the keel of the thing at this point. But I thought, well, that's kind of a cool ship. Tell me more about it. It's not. It's just a conventional diesel-powered, offshore supply ship, basically.
Well, I thought with the Joule as part of
That's
the
a cool
name.
name. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. I thought that was Pacific Jewel. Let me see. U.S. innovators in the fleet electrification field continue to exercise an outsized impact on the global decarbonization movement. This is Texas startup Fleet Zero, which has just nailed $43 million in Series A financing to scale up its electric ship business. But you see, for me, we've talked about some things like we saw those ConAgra ships with the giant sailing masts.
Right.
It seems like free energy, right? I mean, why not use? I mean, you could probably use that for at least a third to half of your travel, right? And wouldn't it make sense to go ahead and harness that when you have prevailing winds, kind of thing?
Certainly.
And yeah, I mean, to me, it would make a lot of sense. And it's not like you need 150 to 200 crew members like you would on the USS Constitution to go up and man the rigging and,
Yeah.
pull the jib and the
Yes,
mainsail.
exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
there was nothing, it was all muscle power. There was no mechanical until they finally got around, in the mid 1800s to adding, a steam engine that could help with some of that work. But other than that, it was all just, you didn't want to have horses on board to do it. You had sailors. So
yeah. No, but now they can do this with the press of a button. Not that we're trying to get off into the sailing ship thing, but I'm just saying, there's all these things now that even if they just adopted the sailing ship technology with the mast on most of the ships, it would significant because most of these ships are only moving at 6 to 8 knots anyways, right? And yeah, we just look at some of these clean energy ideas, and it's like, hey, I mean, people can complain about windmills, but sailing ships look pretty, and people can put some clever, colorful things on the sails, right?
they do some advertising, just like the
There you
guys.
go. Some ads on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sell space on the site. Of course, the problem is, when would you see that? Maybe when you're passing a cruise ship at some point, it's not like you're going to have it up. Well, you could, I suppose, put it up on it in, as long as the wind wasn't blowing when you're moored at harbor, in the harbor or something. But
Right. Now, anyway, it's just, a thought there. Let's see. But so Fleet Zero has a multifaceted approach to electrifying global shipping. Rather than attempting to electrify the biggest cargo vessels traveling the longest routes, they're starting with economy of scale to focus attention on smaller electric ships traveling relatively short distances between stops at slower speeds.
right. Yep.
So if you're guessing that battery swapping comes into the picture, run right out and buy yourself a cigar. Fleet Zero's electric ships can swap batteries in far less time than it takes to recharge. I still think of all the battery swap things we've seen, the stuff we saw with the cement mixers, that one, man,
Yep.
that just looked so cool.
Yep.
To think that you could get a full charge of like 300 megawatts on a battery in 4 to 5 minutes of swapping out the battery. I mean, that's such a great
Yeah,
deal.
the issue, well, for example, the illustration that AI did with me is that I think what it did, it laid out that cargo ship, and there's like 2 green containers stacked in the middle of all the other containers. And I'm guessing that's what it thought the batteries were. I think, the deck space and cargo space is extremely important to all these ships. That's why they've got, clear up in the nose or clear in the back. They have the control and the galley and the crew quarters and things like that, because that's all the valuable real estate. So I guess there has to be at some point a trade-off between that space and selling the rest of the ship to people that need the cargo.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just saying there's other things. I mean, if I were them, I'd totally incorporate the sale thing though, as
Well, for them, the easiest thing to do is not rebuild the ship. Is just put one of these kites, right? One of these parachute kind of things that, once the wind's blowing, you put this thing up and you've got a giant kite
Mhm.
pulling the ship along. That's being explored.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty cool idea too. All right, let's see. Smaller batteries require less space, leaving more room for cargo. In addition, the focus on smaller ships allows them to call at smaller port facilities that are closer to local destinations, shrinking the last mile expenses associated with ground transportation. The other thing is, you got to have battery swap facilities at more locations. So they're going to have to be building part of their own infrastructure probably for this.
Yeah, but they kind of have that already with these giant, the cranes that
Mhm.
are, the move the containers, 40-foot, type
Mhm.
containers, move those back and forth off the ship. That I think would be a fairly simple thing. You just have one station dedicated to recharging batteries, and those are, a stack of those available. And when the ship comes in, you just take that, pull the old one off, and put the new one on. Probably take them maybe an hour, something like that.
Yeah. And of course, if you have all these giant batteries being charged up, you could certainly make use of wind and solar to be
Oh,
charging them up because that'd be the most economical source,
absolutely.
probably.
Yeah, in fact, there are. You see photographs. There are quite a few ports that have wind turbines already associated with them.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of battery powered, you know, big batteries to power the boats, right? But I'm just saying it's a good use case for wind and solar.
Absolutely.
Yep, yep, and of course they provide grid stability as well.
Oh boy.
Let's see. Their cash infusion of 43 million will enable the company to open up a new electric ship factory and research facility in Texas, of course, where everything is bigger, including the maritime fleet electrification movement.
Yeah, I think they're
Um,
based in Houston, I believe.
yeah, that would make sense. They initially launched in New Orleans, but now it supports the company's move to Texas, where it'll ramp up operations to the next level. That's a big loss for New Orleans. Their new headquarters in Houston will serve as the company's hub for manufacturing and R&D. Their initial capacity for production will be 300 megawatt hours per year of marine energy storage systems, a marine robotics and autonomy lab, and a marine propulsion R&D center. They intend to expand its Houston production to up to 3 gigawatt hours per year over the next 5 years. It's going to take a lot more than $43 million to do that.
Oh no,
I'll
that'll
tell
does
you that.
yeah.
But that gets them started. You know, it's interesting because this is one of the areas that really makes a lot of sense. If you were just talking about, say, sailing ships from Houston to Belize or Houston to, you know, Jamaica, something like that. You know what I mean? Going back and forth, or just going from Houston to Miami, for instance. But
Or
I don't
or
know.
or just take feeding the crews on board the offshore oil platforms, things like that, and servicing those as platform
True.
service vessels.
Yeah, there's a good good use as well. Let's see. Anyways, that's all I had for us to cover for today, Bill.
That's a good one. We covered a lot of ground as usual, and we appreciate everybody's participation. And we will. I guess you'll see me next week.
Yeah,
So,
next week. Yeah,
yep.
so I'll have Mike tomorrow, and I'll have Bobby with me on Friday. Anyways, otherwise, folks, have a great day, and I'll be back tomorrow.